If you're like me, you love jigs and fixtures. Here I have this little plate with two tightly fitted neodymium magnets, and I can quickly, easily, and safely sand both sides of this pieces of steel. In these next series of videos, I'm going to show you some of my jigs and fixtures that I've used over the years. Some are going to be straightforward and maybe commonly known, and others, maybe not so much. And some I'll show how I make them with a bit more detail. Let's check them out. Hey, check it out. Wanted to share something with you. So I just finished making these hold down clamps for my new K3 winter sliding table saw. Just a simple piece of wood, right? It's got this little cradle and this dude here that engages with this elongated slot. Of course, some sandpaper for better gription. This will accommodate up to about 3 3/8 with this size, but you can make any size you want. This dude drops on there, that goes on there. You can clamp long boards on here, make irregular cuts, angled cuts. What I really wanted to do, make it for, was safely securing small pieces of wood, and that is locked down nice and tight. Hopefully this will make it in an upcoming issue of Furniture and Cabinet Making magazine. Check them out, make yourself a pair, and oh yeah, one other thing. Yeah, I'm a dork. That did not make it in Furniture and Cabinet Making magazine, but a lot of these jigs and fixtures that I'll be showing did. Anyway, these are absolutely fantastic. I use them all the time. Nothing new as far as design, but yeah, an extremely useful fixture. Here's a few shots of the size, but these could be made any size to fit your machines. I have sets of plans for these on my website. Now, here is a fixture that did make it into Furniture and Cabinet Making magazine, issue 267, my Rubo bench extension. I should have made it when I first made my bench. It's absolutely perfect for when you need, well, longer clamping capability. And here you can see these two boards are longer than my bench by quite a bit. So I grabbed my Rubo bench extension, and it's simply made of Baltic birch, a little bit of a notch there so I can release it. These two pegs go into those holes in the front of my bench. Bench dog comes up, bam. How fantastic is that? Now, I don't have plans for this because it's very bench specific, location of the dogs, how it would clamp, etc. But you can see how simple of a design it is. And what I love about it is I only need it on occasion, and so I don't have to have a really long bench that would just take up more space in my shop. And here's a shot of the interior, and since it was made in layers, it was easy to create the cavities for the bench dogs. And here's a shot of when I was creating the holes in the front of the bench to attach the bench extension. And you can see that eyelet hanging down to help me maintain horizontal position of the drill bit. And I had posted this as a tip on Instagram, and it generated 2.3 million views. So that was with no girls, no bikinis, no sex. 2.3 million views. Not bad for a woodworking video. I actually forgot to make a video of this in action, but you'll get the point. So what this is a draw bolt jig, and it's designed to produce notches to pull countertop joints together. And I made 6 of these for the shop that I work at. And this guy goes on there. There's a couple of clamps that lock that in place, nice and secure. There's sandpaper on the bottom for better gription. Yeah, right. It utilizes a router with a collar that rides inside that notch, and it produces a series of notches, I suppose. And with that, you take a draw bolt, and then you can pull those joints together. So essentially, you'll just lay out all your countertops, put all these jigs on there, and bang them out with a router really quick. I'm utilizing this for a credenza type bookcase countertop that I'm making out of this cherry classic core. So yeah, this is a project that I'm talking about. That top in the back is about 14 foot long, and even though that joint is cross grain, it came out beautiful, but you'll have to take my word for it. So I did find an older video from the older shop that I used to work at, and here you can see those clamps. That's the key feature of this jig. Works amazingly well. And I suppose that post-formed countertop jigs aren't that needed or universal, but the concept certainly is. So just bolting this dude in place came out pretty good. You can see the 4-degree angle right there, and quite simple really. I bet I don't even have, I don't know, 3 hours in it, maybe, if that. And so yeah, pretty strong, feels good. So I'll put some wax lid on this, and that'll make a nice outfeed table for my planer. Instead of my small parts falling off the end, I couldn't keep up. So, and yeah, I realize Hammer makes an in-feed, out-feed support, but it's not going to be red. And here you can see I just made a simple frame. And actually, before I assembled the frame, I attached the piece that would be going to the planer bed. They're angled. They have a draft angle of about 4 degrees. Pretty simple to put that angle on that cleat. Drilled and tapped some holes, reassembled the cleat to the frame, added a deck, and then covered that with Formica, Serum Gray, and Stop Red. Yeah, man, came out awesome. As long as I can keep my beautiful lady from dancing on it, should be fine. And of course, in joiner mode, it's just not used or out of the way. And then planer mode, fabulous. And I guess this would classify as a fixture and not exactly a jig. But man, I am so glad I made this. It works extremely well. Here's a fun one for the router. Check it out. All right, standard router plate. And then this dude, I actually drilled this hole a little bit too close to my slot, but it should be okay. There's not a lot of pressure on it. Had this router bearing, and so I can adjust this to the center of the plate, right? And with that, I can cut this dado. I believe the correct terminology is groove. For this curved panel that's going to be going in these legs, something like that. That'll just follow that. This is offset. I just wanted plenty of room so the vacuum would draw the dust and chips and debris better. So yeah, that should work. I hope. So yeah, it did work, and it worked great. Now, I should have used 2 bearings actually, but it was really easy to put a mark on the base plate, and I could keep that mark oriented 90 degrees to the edge of the leg, and it made a perfect groove. So this dude will get a dado in it. I don't want to push that in, but it actually goes like this. No, like that. This will get a dado in it, and then a curved panel. Yeah, man. All right, here are a couple of shots of that finished project. So a curved leg, a curved panel, a curved groove, created with a simple bearing-guided router plate. Yeah? This thing is incredible. You can see more of this in a YouTube video called Perfect Veneer Seams. I'll leave a link. Of course, the sandpaper, yeah, you know, it just grabs it, right? And that'll keep your veneers from shifting. If you're cutting several of them, I like taping them together here on the ends where the tape's not going to get cut, and that'll keep them right where you want them. A lot of times I need exact widths, and I'll just screw on a some sort of a fence, piece of scrap, screw that down, and you can butt those over and over and get repeated parallel cuts or angled cuts, whatever you want to do. This works so well, I prefer it over my sliding table saw. Incidentally, this also made it in Furniture and Cabinet Making Magazine, issue 262. And this dude, I absolutely love. This is what I call my belt sander dock. And you can tell when I really like a jig because it gets lacquered. I'm going to be using it over and over, and it stays looking nice and clean. So yeah, this one's been altered and modified over the years. This is the final rendition. It works fantastically well. And this is designed for the 9401 Makita, but you could apply this principle to just about any model. And here you can see this plate goes in the slot, and I can ensure that the belt is square, or the platen is square, I should say. And since I use a lot of different belts with my 4x24, I can just change these out easily, much easier and more selection than my large edge sander. Let's give this a go. Now notice the elongated slots in the base, or the top piece, the platform I should call it. And that serves a couple of purposes. A, I can adjust the platform with that T-slot to be dead 90 degrees to the belt sander. And two, I can move it away from the belt sander to add a curved platen. Now, I got to tell you, this set of Jigs fixtures or combination is one of my all-time favorites. So I've got this belt sander dock and then these curved platens for the belt sander. Absolutely incredible usefulness. Check it out. So of course I've moved that platform away from the belt sander to allow for the curved platen, right? Put it in place, and I have a bunch of different radiuses. You can just make them just about any size, down to about a 16-inch radius, or much bigger until you reach flat, yeah? Then tighten this dude back up. And bam, we are ready to go. And with that, I can accurately sand these tiny little curves. How fantastic is that? Sometimes need a small pair of pliers and put a slight back bevel for beautiful, perfect inlays. So these types of gravity feed cup guns are pretty popular, right? And sometimes they will come with a bracket that you would anchor to the wall. But I've noticed that they're very universal, I guess, but they don't always fit right, and sometimes you have to block them out. I'm not a big fan of those. So decades ago, I made this dude, and with that, it just makes it easy to pour in the contents, and you could even store it right there. And occasionally, I just need to spray one little small part, and I'll spray outside. That way I don't have to go through all the, setting up of fans and filters. And so I made this dude. Boom. Yeah, borderline silly, but very effective. This one is part of the group of the DF500 jigs for my domino docks. And this guy, it serves a couple of purposes. You can see it's pretty simple. A couple of cleats. This is a 2-degree bevel here and here. This guy will go on here. I clamp this, and it gives me a position to clamp this stop. Oops. There we go. So it gives me a position to clamp this piece. I actually meant glue and nail in place. And then also I make this sub-assembly separate from this piece so that I can efficiently lacquer this and then lacquer that and then assemble it. It would be too hard if this was attached to try to get lacquer in there. So this way I can lacquer inside, I can lacquer this one separate and then assemble them. And so I don't want any lacquer or finish right here. So with this same jig, I have these little dudes that slip on here. And now I can put 1/2-inch tape right there and right there. Lacquer everything. Lacquer these, and then I have these 2 sub-assemblies that will go together. So, yeah. Jigs, man. This guy goes in here. And then during assembly, this goes in place. These are made actually at totally complete different times, but since I have jigs for everything, I know everything is going to fit just like that. So that can go in place. Pre-drill this.
Add some glue.
If you're not familiar with the dock, this thing will change the way you use your machine. I carry these for both the DF500 and the XL700. If you want to see more, you can head over to my website, check out Ramon's store. There you will find videos on the dock to see it in action. I have big things happening surrounding this dude in the near future. Man, I love this jig. So this is my shim jig for making shims, right? And it just basically utilizes this main base plate, elongated slots, a couple of knobs, and then this secondary part with the knobs released, you can make different size tapers, right? And of course, yeah, sandpaper for better gription. And I don't know if you can see on camera, but so this is straight on this secondary part, and it has this little cut there. And the reason I did that is because my most commonly used shim, I can just put the base plate down on something flat, push that down where that lines up. Those two line up, and it creates this same size wedge every time. So my lumber is straight from the lumber yard. So it's a little bit over 3/4, about 13/16 here in the States. And this secondary part of the jig is 3/4 plywood, which is, under 3/4. This part of the sled is the same as the lumber. So that captures it very well, especially with that sandpaper. You can see how that just grabs that piece. So the height of the blade is just going to be slightly thicker than the lumber. Let me raise that dude. Somewhere in there. And then the fence, I set at 6 1/4. The boards are about 8 inches long, but you could make adjustments to any of these measurements to fit your wants, needs. So let's give this a go. All right, so that funny sound was my blast gate opening. And I have a 12-volt switch on top of my main switch, or near my main switch, so I can activate the table saw only when I need that dust collector. Sometimes I just make one cut and I don't turn the vacuum on. But anyway, it opens the blast gate and then also fires up the dust collector. Fabulous system by Green Gate. And unfortunately, I don't believe they're in business anymore. They retired. And anyway, so you can see how simple this is. You can make a cut, flip the board end for end, or not. Make another cut and just keep repeating the process, and you can cut it all the way to the end. And many times you don't even have to hold on to that board that you're cutting. It grips it in place extremely well. Very efficient way to make shims. And in general, I'll use 2 different species, poplar and maple. Poplar if I'm setting cabinets, for instance, and I need to break them off cleanly and easily, and maple if I need something stronger that won't crush under heavy weight. Beautiful, consistent shims every time. And you'll notice I left this secondary part of the jig, held back so that you have this little window. When you're making your cuts, you can make sure that it is engaged. Make sure, in fact, that it is engaged. Otherwise, you wouldn't be able to see that. So, yeah, fantastic jig. Thanks for watching. These videos are going to be an ongoing series with many parts. I certainly hope that you found these jigs and fixtures useful and perhaps can incorporate them into your workspace. If you're a subscriber, thank you tons. If you're new and haven't subscribed, do me a huge favor. Punch that subscribe button. That'll allow me to keep doing and sharing this. Remember, click, like, subscribe, learn.